We got the truck running. Runs great. Alright, here we are with the 2009 Dodge Ram 2500, 6.7 liter Cummins, 4-wheel drive, long bed truck. I've had this truck for a year now, and I've put 9,100 miles on it. It's not my daily driver. It's a little less miles than I thought was going to get done this year, but there was a bunch of things that happened that slowed me down a bit. So I get about 16 miles a gallon unloaded on the highway, and with about an 9,000 pound trailer, it still gets over 12. It gets close to 13 in that on the highway with that trailer. Not bad at all. The unloaded is not as good as my 5.9, but not too bad. So what was the deal on this truck this year with maintenance and repairs? Like, what happened? Well, there was, I would say, 3 or 4 things that were mandatory repair items. The first thing I knew right when I bought the truck that it's going to need new shocks and a new steering damper on it. So I did that and put the Bilstein 5100s in there, and they've held up pretty well. There was a bunch of things that I ended up having to do to get this truck to ride better, to take some of the slop out of the suspension. And it's been hard, I don't know why, to get it to ride as good as my other Ram. So the shocks definitely helped the situation, but it wasn't the whole thing. The next thing that was mandatory that I had to do was radiator. So I ended up with a cracked radiator, and I found out about that when I changed the coolant and filled it up. There was a crack in the top part of the radiator, roughly right there, and that's where they typically always crack. My 5.9's radiator cracked last year too, and it cracked in the same spot. So there was that radiator issue, and then the clutch slave cylinder. So my clutch pedal pretty much went dead on me, and that was the most scary thing that happened because I didn't know what was wrong with it, why I was having trouble shifting. And so clutch slave cylinder went bad. It was not expensive fix, but it was a scary one because the truck was almost not drivable while that was going bad. It was leaking clutch hydraulic fluid, brake fluid, and it was pretty much, I could get a little bit of clutch to disengage, but not completely. So it was really tough to get in gear and everything else. So that was a scary one last September. But since then, everything's been fine with the clutch. No problems with the actual clutch itself this year. Ball joints and wheel bearings was the final mandatory item that I had to do, and that's what really improved the ride and the suspension of this truck. It was pretty sloppy on bumps prior to the new ball joints, and I wasn't having to expect to have to do ball joints this year, but it ended up happening. So I went with XRF ball joints, Timken wheel bearings as a preventative measure, and we got a pretty good front end. Besides the tie rod ends and the sway bar ends, pretty much the whole front end's replaced this last year. And the tires. My old tires, they were just going bad. I ended up getting new tires, but that happens to every truck, you know. And the new tires are good. They definitely look good on the truck. I'm starting to feel like I'm customizing it a little bit with the tires, with the rack on the back. It's starting to get a little bit personalized. So how about the maintenance items? There was, of course, oil changes and fuel filter changes throughout the year, but some non-mandatory maintenance items. For example, like I replaced the water pump. I didn't have a bad water pump, but I replaced it anyways while I was in there, and I had a chirping pulley, and which I still haven't resolved. And I've replaced the idler pulley, the tensioner pulley, the water pump, and a new belt. And at this point, I'm like, all right, I'm not even going to worry about it. But along with the water pump came the radiator cap, the new coolant. I changed the transfer case fluid, the belt tensioner I already mentioned, front and rear diff fluid, oil changes there. CCV filter for the blow-by portion of the emissions, which the truck still has its after treatment on it. And I changed the oil in the transmission. It's got a G56 6-speed manual, and I put a 50 weight oil in that. Here's a look at the interior of the truck. And then finally, I already said about the idler pulley. The cold air intake from S&B was the only performance upgrade this year. So I do have a cold air intake. I'll show under the hood right after I get done with the interior now that we're already here. But interior is holding up pretty well. The seat in good shape. The truck has 247,000 miles, roughly. And seat in very good shape. This one has manual lumbar, which is interesting because I have a truck 6 years older with the same trim package, and it's got power lumbar. But the dash looks wonderful on this truck. They must have fixed the dash material on the later third gens. No problems here. Everything's okay here besides this one heated seat doesn't work. This one does work. So there's an electrical problem with that heated seat. AC and heat work just fine, which is awesome because there was a lot of HVAC problems in the older third gens. I think with the newer ones, things got a lot better. But overall, everything's looking pretty good in here. Let's take a look in the back. Trying to give you all fairly in-depth tour of the truck so you can see just how things are holding up. This truck's 11 years old now. When I got it last year at 10 years old, it's the newest vehicle I'd ever purchased in my life. Everything back here is holding up well. These seats look like they've barely ever been sat in. Let me give you a quick look at the body condition that it's in. The paint job looks great still. There's minimal dings and dents. There's a couple that have been fixed, like right there. I mean, they painted black there. I never even noticed that when I bought the truck. Down here from rocks being thrown, there's a few areas of paint that have been chipped off. That's true in the back as well. But looking down the side of the bed, it's not full of dings and dents. Overall, for an 11-year-old truck with its mileage, it's in pretty good exterior shape. The bed liner's in great shape. This is aftermarket Line-X bed liner. This truck probably did not come from factory with bed liner. You can see no bed liner on the tailgate at the top. But here's the aftermarket. Really nice. It's held up well. The side steps have a little bit of chrome peeling on them right there. I'm not too worried about that. I may end up deleting the side steps. They make it tough to crawl underneath the truck. But exterior-wise, we're in pretty good shape on this truck. There's a handful of scratches, which is really obvious on a black paint job truck. But once again, for the age and mileage, not bad at all. Now I'll look under the hood. So we didn't have any problems with the 6.7 this year. Ran well all year. And it's really clean in here for a diesel engine, not having much oil leaks or anything like that. The batteries are still these old ones, so batteries are hanging in there for me. Here's our engine. Here's the new radiator. You can tell it still looks pretty new. It's got a shiny silver color to it. Here's our cold air intake that was installed this year. Overall, pretty low maintenance under the hood. I didn't have any mishaps or any issues. So, did a lot of basic maintenance, and then those few items, handful of items that were surprises, but that's it. But only 9,100 miles, which was less than I thought. So what about next year. Like, what do I have planned for this truck? I do have it as a backup to my 5.9, which is my daily, and I also pull my trailer with it. And I'll pretty much have retired to 5.9 from trailer pulling, and I use this truck. We did about 700 miles in year one with the trailer. Not too bad, which is like 10% of my mileage. So we did a fair amount with the trailer. Went on and probably pulled it 3 or 4 times in total, 3 or 4 trips with it. But this year, I'm going to start using this truck as the long-distance road trip truck as well. So, while it's not going to be the daily yet, it might become the daily eventually. I will start using it for long hauls. And I've already been on one long haul. Went to South Florida with it. It was about 17 or 1,500 miles, 1,600, 1,700, somewhere in there, round trip. And it was perfect all the way. Rode great. And yeah, I really liked it on the long hauls. I just wish the seat was a little more comfortable. Like my early third gen has more comfortable seats for a long haul. Like, yeah, I can drive 400 or 500 miles in this and be decently comfortable. But in that 03, I can drive 1,000 miles and my back won't even hurt the next day. So that's pretty awesome. But I've been enjoying this truck, and I think I'm going to keep it for another year. There were some questions about whether I'd keep this truck more than a year or not. Originally, I wanted to get a 4th gen if I was going to get a 6.7. I ended up with this truck because it was the configuration I was looking for. And since this truck has, proven itself and is perfect for my purposes, I'm definitely planning to keep it for another year. One bad thing that happened is it did get rear-ended. Main damage was that this hitch got busted down, got bent. My hitch actually went through the car's radiator and got stuck. We got stuck, and my truck had to be jacked up off the ground so that they could pull their car off. But besides that, their car was like totaled. My truck, even the bumper was in decent shape. I mean, there's a dent in the bumper over there, but either someone hit me recent weeks or I hit something, but I don't recall. So that's weird. But besides that, that's really all I got to say for this year. Let's try to pack as much info as I could in here for y'all. If you have any questions, let me know. And I'll see y'all in the next video.